This episode is brought to you by Sterling Soap Company. How often do you think about your soap? Well, if you answered, not much, maybe you should. You see, a lot of what passes for soap in stores is technically not soap, according to the FDA's definition. It's full of lab-created chemicals and detergents because, well, it's cheaper to make. Now, what if you could buy natural soap made from natural ingredients like tallow, palm oil, coconut oil, and scented with essential oils, and for just a little more than you'd pay for grocery store soap? Sterling Soap is 100% natural, and with a wide variety of bath soaps, shave soaps, beard balm, lotions, and cologne, there's a product and a scent for just about everybody. Check them out for yourself at sterlingsoap.com. That's STIRLING soap.com.
Hey there, sports history fan. This is Darren Hayes, host of the Pigskin Dispatch and Jersey Dispatch podcast. I hope you've enjoyed another great episode here on Sports History Network. Now, speaking of sports history, this episode was brought to you by Firefly Books, and they have two great ones for you this summer. For basketball fans, they have the NBA 75, the definitive history by author Dave Zarum, who's appeared on our Jersey Dispatch podcast recently. He tells about the experience, the thrilling journey of the NBA, from its humble beginnings to its modern glory. Uncover the untold stories of triumph, controversy, and the greatest stars of the game. This isn't just a book. It's courtside seats to over 75 years of NBA history. And for the golf enthusiasts, swing into The Golf Round I'll Never Forget by Matt Adams. Relive 50 of golf's most memorable moments through the eyes of the legends themselves. From Garcia's triumph at the 2017 Masters to Nicklaus' miraculous 1986 comeback, it's the closest you'll get to walking the fairways with golf's greatest. Get your summer read on. Grab a copy of NBA 75 or The Golf Round I'll Never Forget, available online or at your favorite bookstore.
This is Basketball History 101 with Rick Loayza.
Welcome back to Award-winning Basketball History 101, part of the Sports History Network. I am your host, Rick Loayza, and this is the podcast we bring to life some of the forgotten stories from basketball history. We are bringing old school basketball to a new school audience, and today we bring you the story of Sam Gilbert. He was not a basketball player or a coach, but he became highly influential in his impact on college basketball starting in the 1960s and into the 1980s. So how did someone who neither played nor coached have such an incredible influence? Well, before we get into that, let's take a look at Gilbert's background. He was born in LA in 1913 to Lithuanian immigrant parents, and being an LA native, he attended UCLA in the 1930s. And in case you were wondering, that stands for the University of California at Los Angeles. It was actually the second campus of the University of California, with the original campus being up in Northern California in the city of Berkeley. Now, as the second campus of the University of California, UCLA was meant to serve students from Southern California. And while he started his time as a student at UCLA, he never finished his studies, but became one of UCLA's biggest sports fans. Gilbert made his wealth with his construction company, Gilbert and Associates, and he also created a couple of inventions that became highly popular in the construction industry, and those inventions became the primary source of his amazing wealth. And he used that wealth to become the biggest booster at UCLA at the time. Now, that begs a question. What exactly is a booster? In general terms, an athletic booster is someone who goes beyond simply supporting a university or being a big fan of that university's athletics. A booster is someone who makes financial contributions to the university athletic department to help improve their facilities, like building a brand new locker room or a new stadium. They might even help contribute to the purchase of an airplane for the university to fly their athletes around the country for games. Now, these financial contributions are perfectly legal and within the rules of university athletics, as long as the payments are made directly to the athletic department of that university. However, some boosters are local business people that offer discounts or special privileges to the athletes directly. They might provide free meals or a discount on clothing. They might even give give the athlete a job that the athlete never actually has to show up for. In extreme cases, the booster might give the athlete the gift of a car, jewelry, or airline tickets. They may even make a direct monetary payment to the athlete himself. Now, these actions are completely against the rules of university athletics, or at least they were against the rules back in the 1960s and the 1970s. In other words, an athletic booster is anyone who contributes financially or in some other tangible way helps improve the university's athletic teams and to give them the best chance at success on the court or on the field. Sam Gilbert fit that bill like a custom-tailored suit. Now, before I continue with Gilbert, let me clarify that making financial contributions directly to an athlete only violates university athletic rules. It is not a legal issue. In other words, if someone gets caught paying a player directly, neither the booster nor the athlete go to jail. The athlete will likely get kicked out of school, and the booster will likely be banned from any university events in the future. And the university might be put on some sort of a probation for a few years as a consequence. Now, let's get on with Gilbert. He began to amass his wealth in the 1940s and 1950s, and by the time the 1960s rolled around, he was an incredibly wealthy man. He was also an incredible supporter of UCLA athletics, and you might want to call it enthusiasm gone wrong. But Gilbert began to develop relationships with various UCLA basketball players, and he would arrange for them to have free meals and free clothing from local LA businesses. He would often invite the players over to his mansion on the weekends where they could enjoy an afternoon by the pool and free access to Gilbert's refrigerator. Anything that the players needed, Gilbert would help provide it for them. The players began to really trust Sam Gilbert, and they would often go to him for advice on romance, finances, basketball, anything. They would often refer to Gilbert as Papa G. Gilbert was an incredibly generous man with the players, and he did it for one simple reason. He wanted it to be known in the basketball community that players who chose to go to UCLA would be given the royal treatment, and that would give UCLA an incredible advantage in recruiting. The very top high school players would almost always pay a visit to Gilbert while they were on a recruiting trip to UCLA. Gilbert would explain the financial benefits of playing basketball at UCLA, and that was enough to convince more than a few high school players to choose their program. Lucius Allen and Marquez Johnson and even Lou Alcindor met with Gilbert during their trips to UCLA to decide whether or not that is the school they wanted to play for. Now, I don't want to cross any lines here because the only things that we know for sure are the things that people have admitted to since the events happened. Both Marquez Johnson and Lucius Allen have admitted on record that they received a whole host of financial benefits while playing at UCLA. And Sam Gilbert never really tried to hide what he was doing. It was almost like he was daring someone to do something about it. He was flagrantly breaking the rules of university athletics and practically bragging about it. Players were driving cars that they could not afford, wearing clothes that they could not afford, eating at restaurants that they could not afford. And it was all due to Sam Gilbert. So here is a question. How much of this was Coach John Wooden aware of, and what was his involvement in any of this? Well, we will get to that in a moment, but I did want to put it out there. So let's continue with Sam Gilbert. So what did Gilbert get in return for all of this money that he was spending on basketball players? Well, one thing that he did ask for in return from the elite players was that they allow Gilbert to represent them in negotiating their NBA contract. Gilbert helped negotiate Kareem's contract with the Milwaukee Bucks back in 1969 for $1.4 million. But unlike most sports agents, Gilbert did not take a percentage of the contract. He negotiated that contract at no charge to Kareem. And he did the same thing with other UCLA players that went on to play in the NBA. In one sense, it seems that his love for UCLA basketball was pure. He just wanted to see the Bruins win as many national championships as possible. And for all of his financial contributions to the UCLA program, they won 10 national championships during his time as a booster. And that makes him probably the most successful booster of all time. There are wealthy people all over the country that make legal and illegal contributions to their university of choice in an attempt to help that team win a championship. But no one comes even close to the success that Gilbert had. But let me get back to the question that I asked earlier. How much of this did John Wooden know about? This is the man who is regarded by many to be the greatest basketball coach of all time. And as hard as it is to believe, it seems that Wooden knew little to nothing about what Gilbert was up to. At the same time, Wooden purposely never asked any questions. The signs were everywhere that the players were benefiting financially from attending UCLA. These are the things that I had mentioned earlier in the episode. Wooden's players were driving cars they could not afford, wearing clothes they could not afford, eating at restaurants that they could not afford. But for all of Wooden's amazing qualities as a man and as a coach, he purposely never asked where anything came from. There was one time in the 1970s when UCLA was about to board a plane for Indiana to play Notre Dame University. Indiana is a cold weather state and it often snows in the winter. Well, as the players arrived at the airport in LA, half of the team showed up in identical brand new fur coats. Now, almost any other coach would immediately ask, where did the coats come from? The coats were incredibly expensive, and these players had nowhere near the finances to afford one. But Wooden never asked where the coats came from. This was an example of where Wooden ignored what was painfully obvious, and as far as we can tell, Wooden and Gilbert never had a conversation together. But Wooden always knew that Gilbert was hanging around the team. So how much of UCLA's success was due to Wooden, and how much of it was due to Gilbert delivering elite players year after year? Well, honestly, it was both. John Wooden has often said that even a great coach cannot win without great players. And Gilbert provided some of the best players that college had to offer in the 1960s and 1970s. However, once John Wooden retired in 1975, the UCLA program did not win another championship for nearly 20 years, long after Wooden and Gilbert were gone from the program. It was not until Wooden retired that the NCAA, the governing body of university athletics, launched a formal investigation into improper benefits being received by UCLA basketball players. And the investigation concluded that Gilbert had been paying players and giving them gifts for decades. Therefore, he was banned from UCLA and was to have no further contact with any UCLA official or player for the rest of his life. The investigation also concluded that John Wooden had no direct involvement or personal knowledge of any of the improper benefits being delivered. In other words, Wooden came out squeaky clean from the investigation. But that did not stop fellow Hall of Fame basketball coach Bobby Knight of Indiana University from confronting Wooden about it. Wooden said that he just never figured out how to handle the Gilbert situation, so he chose not to handle it at all. And any time that anyone writes a book about the Wooden years of UCLA, probably needs to devote an entire chapter to Sam Gilbert. He was a huge part of their success, even if it was against the rules. And today we have a new era of university athletics where it is now perfectly allowed for universities to pay players directly to come to their school. High school players now hire agents and representatives to negotiate contracts with the universities. Players are also allowed to sign endorsement contracts to make commercials for any product or service that they want to. If Sam Gilbert was alive today in 2025, everything that he did back then would be perfectly within the rules today. And it is amazing how things change. Well, that does it for us. That was the story of Sam Gilbert, the man behind the UCLA dynasty. Join us next week when we share another story from basketball history. That's next time on Basketball History 101, part of the Sports History Network, the headquarters of Sports Yesteryear. Go to sportshistorynetwork.com to find out more about this and other sports history podcasts. If you like what you hear, please hit that subscribe button wherever you get your podcasts. And check out our page on Facebook. It's called Basketball History 101 Podcast. There you will find short historical posts, and I'll also announce there when new episodes come out. I want to thank my producer and editor, Jacob Loayza. Join us each week as we continue to mine the history of basketball for more great stories from the past. Take care and see you soon.
This podcast is part of the Sports History Network, your headquarters for the yesteryear of your favorite sport. You can learn more at sportshistorynetwork.com.
The Sports History Network, where legends live on and the past plays loud. Welcome to the place where history's proud. From gridiron glory to the hardwood stars, from the racetrack heat to Olympic bars. It's the voices, the stories, the moments you miss, told by fans and pros who live for this. Hook and Themic, the Sports History Network, where the past comes alive. Podcasts and blogs that keep the flame high. From Babe to Brady, Alley to the Dome. If it's history and sports, then this is the home. SportsHistoryNetwork.com, the headquarters of sports yesteryear.